So thank you everyone for coming today to our 22 annual meeting. I am your host, Garrett Flicker. I am the Vice President of the Colorado Log Cabin Republicans. I was, up until very recently, the chairman for the Denver Republican Party. I recently stepped down to join the Eli Bremer U.S. Senate campaign as his political director. And it's been great. We've been traveling the state. We've been meeting a lot of wonderful people, and it's people in Colorado are ready for change. As log cabin Republicans, we need to be at the forefront of this fight. Now, there is a culture war happening in America right now, and it is the time of social justice and wokeness and insanity, and we are in the position to be the people combating against that. I was told recently that log cabin Republicans were responsible in 2020 for flipping 7 congressional seats. 7 congressional seats. That's nothing to scoff at, folks. That's a lot for an organization that was up and coming just a few years ago. In Colorado, log cabin Republicans have the ability to be traveling around the state, engaging on our local levels with our House district candidate, our Senate district candidates, and we could be mirroring the same things that we see happening at a national level. We could be flipping these critical swing seats, just like in the House. A good example of this: House District 59 down in La Plata County. I was just down there the other week on a campaign event. That when I was going to school down there at Fort Lewis College back in 2016, it was still a red county. And from 2016 forward, it's been nothing but blue. And if organizations like Log Cabin, as we continue to grow and gain support, begin to reach out and help our candidates in those areas, we can begin to shift the perception, especially in those college mountain towns that have switched from red to blue. Every House seat we take, every Senate seat we take, in the Colorado legislature, that brings us 1 inch closer to, retaking the Colorado House and retaking control of the state. With that being said, doing pretty good on time here. I do want to start off with our first guest speaker today. She is running for governor. She is the current CU region at large, Heidi Ganahl.
Yo. Notes, because you guys, I have 4 kids at home and they have been keeping me very busy this week, so I want to make sure I get all my points in, so I apologize, but I am having such a ball out on the campaign trail and traveling the state, like you said, Garrett, just meeting great people and hearing the stories of Colorado. And I think that I've never been more confident and more excited that we have an opportunity to take back our beautiful state. We hear this every election, right? It's the most important election ever. But I truly believe the American dream is slipping away, and it's right at the precipice here in Colorado, and our Colorado way of life is right on the verge of being lost forever. So I'm homegrown. I'm from Monument, Colorado, down the road. I went to Lewis Palmer High School, grew to fall in love with the small towns of our state, our beautiful state. And I do believe they're the heart and soul of Colorado, rural Colorado, but also the small towns across our state. I'm married to one of the top barbecue cooks in the country, Jason, who has GQ Barbecue. He's actually opening up his 3rd one right by here at Valdamar in a few weeks. So look out for that if you live in the area. And I founded Camp Bow Wow, the country's largest pet care franchise, like doggy daycare, boarding, etc. back in 2000. And grew it for about 15 years and then sold it in 2014 to VCA, the veterinary chain. And at that point decided I wanted to do something to give back. So I ran for regent at the University of Colorado statewide. That was in 2016. So I've been a regent for about 5 years. But the most important thing I do is what I referenced a minute ago is I'm a mom. I'm a mom of 4. I have twins, Jack and Jenna, that are 9. And then I have a 12-year-old Holly and a 26-year-old Tori. And I am a mom on a mission, I like to say. I'm a mom on a mission to make this a terrible, horrible, no good, very bad year for Jared Polis and the Democrats. What do you think about that? Woo! Jared Polis, he's very out of touch, and he's caused a lot of damage to our state. In fact, I like to say he's the point man for Joe Biden. He tries to distance himself from Joe Biden, but he's pretty aligned with all of his policies, down to the new Green Deal that we have here in Colorado, and a lot of the practices and policies that are hurting America are also here in Colorado hurting us. Look at the energy policy that's happening here. We were decimating our energy industry, the oil and gas folks, and we produce some of the cleanest energy on the planet, but that's not happening right now. He launched his re-election bid this week. I actually was down in Pueblo the last couple of days, and he was down there right before me. And he was touting how much he'd done for the beautiful state of Colorado and the amazing progress we've made since he was elected governor. And all I could think of in my head was, are you kidding me? Your accomplishments are that you've wrecked our economy. We've gone from number 11 to number 29 in business-friendly states. He signed on to over 83 taxes and fees, new taxes and fees since he's governor. And then he decides to give us a reprieve of 2 cents on the gas tax for the next 6 months. He's so generous, don't you think? 2 cents on the gas tax when we're paying how much at the tank? It's been insane.
Yeah.
He also unleashed a crime tsunami here in Colorado. We are #1 in the increase in violent crime in this country right now. We have the #1 auto theft problem in Colorado. He signed on, and I didn't know this till the last few days, I checked on it. He's the one who signed us up as a sanctuary state, which, have you seen what's happening with fentanyl in the great state of Colorado? It's destroying our kids, our families. Fentanyl is a huge crisis, which really makes Colorado one of the border states. It's coming right through our border. We've got to address that as well. And then the homelessness situation. We can solve that with compassion and care, but also clean up our streets and make sure that a dog walker who I talked to earlier this week doesn't have to check her dog's paws for needles after she walks them around the block. That's terrible. A lot of that comes down to addiction and mental health issues, which is a whole nother problem in our state. Everywhere I go, every corner of the state, we are dealing with a mental health crisis. And one of the things that's happened is our kids being isolated and kept out of school and out of sports has caused our teen suicide to rise dramatically. We are the 6th highest rate in the country for teen suicide, 2nd highest for drug addiction in the US, here in Colorado. I don't know if you saw his post earlier this week. He posted about pot sales and how tremendous the pot sales have been. He was bragging about it, but no mention of the 2% highest in the country, or I'm sorry, 2nd highest in the country for drug addiction rates for our kids. He's also decimated and disrespected rural Colorado, whether it's supporting the introduction of wolves, or I don't know if you saw, he had to have someone resign on his veterinary board. He called ranchers and farmers despicable on her Facebook post. You okay, Garrett?
Yeah. Sorry.
No worries, no worries. So here we've got a governor who's unleashed a crime tsunami. He's wrecked our economy. He's decimated and disrespected rural Colorado, and he's crushing our kids. One last thing on our kids, our schools. 60% of students in Colorado, 60% cannot read, write, or do math at grade level right now. And that's not because of COVID. That's been happening for many years. So what's the solution to that? Well, I am a firm believer that the funding has to follow the student, not the system. We've got to make sure the funding follows the family, so if they can get a better option for their kids, then let's let them do that, whether it's private school, homeschool, micro school. Honestly, the nonsense that's being taught in the schools, which I'm sure Deb's going to have a lot to say about that, the learning loss, the drug addiction rate, the teen suicide, that was the final line for me, where I decided as a mom, I couldn't tolerate what was happening to our beautiful state anymore and to our kids' future. I mean, it is bad. It is bad. So I didn't want to wake up in 5 or 10 years and think I could have done something, and I didn't. And as the only statewide elected Republican in Colorado, which is not a good thing, that's a bad thing, I needed to use my voice to speak up for our beautiful state, stand up and be on the front lines to fight this battle. And I'm so happy I am. I don't want to be on the couch yelling at the TV for another couple of years. You know, I am a fighter, and I've taken the fight to several important groups in this state. One is the teachers unions. I've been involved in opening several charter schools around the Colorado. One of them is pretty close by here, Golden View Classical Academy, and a couple more through the Ascent Network. The teachers unions have done a number on our kids in our schools. I live in Douglas County, and I am not afraid to take on that fight. Jared Pullis is lockstep with the teachers unions. We've got to call him out for that because he acts like a school choice candidate. I've also taken the fight to bureaucrats who are crushing our small businesses. My husband, like I said, has restaurants, and we've got to do all we can to protect our small businesses. That's the job creators of the state. We've lost so many throughout this pandemic. So we've got to unleash the regulations, remove the red tape, and make sure they can do what they do best, and that's create jobs. And then I've taken the fight to Democrats destroying Colorado, leading various ballot initiatives, whether it was no on Prop CC to protect Tabor. I shared that effort. I chaired the amendments Y and Z to make sure that we have fair maps. And I also chaired the effort to protect the Electoral College and stop the national popular vote. And finally, as you know, I'm a business leader, I'm a businesswoman. I like to get results. And as your governor, that's going to be my priority. It's going to be to get results. On day one, I'm going to rescind every executive order that I can that Jared Polis has put forward, over 500 of them. I can't think of one that I would support that's been good for the state or makes it easier to live, work, or raise a family in Colorado. And then I'll replace every board and commission member in this state. He does his dirty work through the boards and commissions. So we've got to go to work, roll up our sleeves, and make sure we have good people on those boards and commissions. I'm going to start with the parole board. Who wants to fire everybody on the parole board right now? Law and order back in this state. And that's day one, what I want to get done there. And then finally, as your governor, I want to trust you. This is a beautiful state that believes in trusting the people of its state to make good decisions for yourself and your family and your business. And we've got to follow the Constitution. We've got to support the Second Amendment. My father was a police officer, and he taught me from the time I can remember that law and order is so important, and so is the Second Amendment to making sure that our society stays that way. Also, free speech. I've been a warrior for free speech at CU. It's one of my passions, academic freedom, and making sure that we protect the ability of students and faculty to speak up. That's not happening in higher education right now. And honestly, that's a place we need to look for improving our schools. The teachers are being taught how to teach in those higher education institutions. And one of them is CU in our state. We've got to make sure that they are teaching the things that we want our kids to learn, like civics education. We've also got to make sure that our budget is in check in Colorado. Our budget has doubled in the last 10 years to over $40 billion in COVID money. And I question whether it's being spent on the right things or the right ways. We've got to take a deep, hard look at the budget and make sure that any money we do have is invested in the right things and doing the right things for the beautiful people of Colorado. And mandates. Let's talk about mandates. Boy, I'm tired of mandates. Are you? Oh, absolutely. We've been mandated mass quarantine to the point where we don't have freedom anymore. The only thing that should be mandated in Colorado is freedom. What do you think about that? Yeah. And freedom has been crushed under Polis and the Democrats here. His policies have caused a lot of hardship. And I understand hardship. I've been through a lot in my life. Some of you know my story, but I lost my first husband in a plane crash at the age of 27 and managed to pick up myself after a few years of really tough times and start Camp Bow Wow, the franchise company. And then I got Camp Bow Wow through the Great Recession of 08. Remember that? My goodness, young people, I talk about what's happening with COVID and think about what happened in 08, how uncertain we were about whether we were going to have an economy or a future. Thank goodness people love their dogs in this state, so they got us through it. We ended up on the Inc. 500 fastest growing company list afterwards. And then most recently, the hardship that I faced was a health diagnosis. I got diagnosed with a brain tumor about 18 months ago, and it wasn't cancerous, but I had to have brain surgery called a meningioma, and came out of it fine. It took a while to recover. I got to sit on the couch recovering during the election, which was really frustrating of 2020. I'm like, I want to be in the fight, which is part of why I'm here. And I kid with people that when they took out the tumor, they took out my filter, and I'm feistier than ever. So we are in a battle for the heart and soul of our state, for our Colorado way of life, for freedom. I want you to join me. HeidiForGov.com. We've got business cards around you can grab. We need donations. You can donate up to $1,250 per person in the governor's race, but $22 a month helps just as much. We need volunteers. We're launching our women's coalition on Monday called the Gigi's or the Ganahl Gals. We'd love the gals in the room to be part of it. We're going to have guys for Ganahl too, but we're starting with the women. And we're going to make this an out-of-the-box campaign. If you've already seen, we're doing things differently. We threw out the playbook. And we are going to make it fun to be a Republican again. That's one of our mantras. So I'll wrap up by saying, I am here to put the heat on Polis. I will constantly put the heat on Jared Polis and call him out for the bad things he's done for our state. I'm going to keep the heat off of other Republicans. It was Reagan who said there's an 11th Amendment that says do not beat up on your fellow Republicans. I think we've got to stay together. We've got to be kind. We've got to be caring. We can still disagree about what the future of our state looks like, but let's keep the heat on Polis and not each other.
Right.
So, thank you. Right here, right now, I'm so excited to be your voice and be on the front lines fighting for you. I'll continue to do so. If you have feedback or questions, you can always reach out to our team, Heidi at HeidiForGov.com. But God bless all of you. God bless our great state, and God bless America. And
Our next guest speaker today is running for U.S. Senate. She is Miss Deborah Flora.
Thank you. It's so great to be here. I really appreciate it. I just wanted to ask you a question. Who's ready to tell Michael Bennett that 2 terms is 2 terms too many? I think it's time to let you know that. And I want to tell you something. On my very first day on the campaign trail, I met this woman. I think it was at one of the tiny little mountain towns, about this big. And she came up to me. She goes, you know, red hair is God's warning sign. And I said, you know what? It is for Michael Bennett and the Democrats. Here we're coming. So. Well, I want to take a moment just to let you know a little bit about myself, because that really has informed why I'm standing here today. I grew up on Lowry Air Force Base, right in Aurora, the daughter of a lieutenant colonel. And I want to tell you a funny story. So we have 2 teenagers. One's about to be 17 this week. The other one's 18. They just got their driver's license. So if you're a praying person, remember my husband and I pray for us, because two teenagers with driver's license. But when I got my driver's license, I was on Lowry Air Force Base. My dad was an officer. So I got back from getting my license. I was very proud of myself. And on the car was a officer sticker. So I drive on, those poor airmen at the gate had to salute me. I thought, this is America. You get saluted when you get your driver's license. And the only reason why I share that is I grew up like many people thinking that freedom was like oxygen. It would always be there. I took it for granted. Then you fast forward a little bit, I went to school in Cherry Creek District. I went to Overland High School, and then I was Miss Colorado. Now, I only share this for 2 reasons. It's a little trivial other than this. As Miss Colorado, I got to see every corner of this great state. I love Colorado. I'm so grateful you're still here. Some people are leaving. I'm staying to fight for this state. We are blessed to be here, and I will do everything within my power to make sure that we get the freedom back that we deserve. But as second runner-up to Miss America, I found myself in the Soviet Union during the coup. Now, I got to tell you, when you go from the lap of liberty on Lowry Air Force Base, and then you walk into a situation where you see the palpable absence of freedom, it was in that moment that I resolved that I would also fight for individual liberty when and if that day came. Well, today is that day, and that's why I'm running for the U.S. Senate. You see, my dad was willing to fight for it in Vietnam. My husband's an 82nd Airborne veteran. But what I'm seeing now reminds me what I saw in the Soviet Union. You see, picture this. I just came from Colorado, second runner-up in my early 20s. And everywhere I looked in the Soviet Union, it was gray, it was dark. People were afraid to look up, afraid to speak up. They were afraid of their children who were being indoctrinated against them with radical agendas by the state. Unfortunately, sounding a little bit too much like what is going on right now in our schools. And when I saw that, I thought, you know what, I will never whisper. Well, then I did come back. I had temporary insanity, and I went to Hollywood. Yes, I'm a recovered actress in my left brain, my right mind. But what I realized was that in Hollywood, this socialism, this big government, blanket that was just bearing down on people had already taken root. While I was there, I quickly moved from acting. My husband, I met him. He was a producer at Walt Disney Studios. We have a production company. I'm a small business owner. The reason why we did stay in that industry is because I believe in the power of story. One of the things that we as conservatives don't do very well is we don't communicate very well. We don't tell stories. We don't grab the hearts. We just bring up our pie charts. If we actually learn how to harness the media, there'd be a big difference. But when I was there, there's a gentleman named Gary Sinise. Many of you may know him. He was Lieutenant Dan in Fort Scott. Now, I shared this story because he found my husband and I, because my husband's being 82nd Airborne and in the halls of Disney. He was never hiding. He was never in the closet in that way, in any way, shape, or form. So Gary was trying to get together conservatives in Los Angeles. So he invited us to this lunch. And I walked through the door, and it was like the first Sons and Daughters of Liberty. And standing in this room was Andrew Breitbart, standing next to Pat Boone, standing next to Mark Cherry, the log cabin Republican behind Desperate Housewives, standing next to John Boyd, Gary, my husband, and myself. Now, why I share this is because that's a picture of what America should be. It absolutely should be. When you look at that room, you got Andrew Breitbart standing next to Pat Boone, standing next to Mark Cherry. The one thing they all had in common, and the reason why they were there as conservatives, is because they believed and knew this. The job of the US government is one thing and one thing only: to protect the individual liberties of its citizens and nothing more. And when we find ourselves in a situation where the government has gotten so far outside those boundaries and it believes its job is to dictate every area of our lives, can we open our businesses? Can we decide whether or not we have something injected into our bodies? Can we make our own private healthcare decisions? Can we decide whether or not we want to worship or not worship? Can we decide any of these things in our lives or what we teach our children? I am committed as your next senator to going to Washington, D.C. and letting the government know once again that is its only job, and push back against the vast overreach of government into every single area of our lives, because that's all it is supposed to be doing. So I was there, I saw this group start with 10 people in that room. I want to tell you something, this is encouraging. Gary, first of all, asked me to be the first executive director of the group. And I said, Gary, thanks a lot. It is a secret group, so I can never tell anybody what I did. And I had to tell everybody I was just like Barack Obama, I was a community organizer. But we grew that group from 10 people to over 3,000. If we can do that in the heart of Hollywood, I am telling you, Colorado is going to be a piece of cake, because everyone around us is waking up and realizing that we have stepped through the looking glass. And when you have Michael Bennett, a career politician who votes 100% of the time with Joe Biden, 96% of the time with Bernie Sanders, he is out of touch with every single one of us in this room. So I came back home again. Yes, he is. I came back home again. My husband and I were so grateful to bring our kids back to Colorado, make sure it does not become California, because I've seen what that looks like. All of my family is here. And when I did, I started a radio show. I've been doing radio on and off for 10 years on 710 KNUS. I was the director of public policy for that station because I wanted to jump in right away. And in that position, I began to get engaged. We stopped heroin injection sites down next to the Capitol building. And then something happened that really put me into overdrive. And that was when many parents, and I stood with many around this stage, went to the Capitol building to testify against comprehensive sex ed. Hundreds of us showed up, waited hours until midnight practically, led rallies. And when they shoved it through on the last day of the legislature, regardless, I thought to myself, this is not representational government. I started an organization called Parents United America, which advocated for parents across the state to be the ultimate authority in their children's lives. You fast forward, it was COVID that woke everybody up. And last summer in June, I was one of those parents that just got my dander up. I testified at our Douglas County School Board meeting, and we helped flip our school board. It went viral, and I ended up on the national meeting. Now, I was only one of those folks. But Holly Warren, who's sitting here, who is my field director, was a campaign manager for the Kids First slate in Douglas County, and we flipped that school board. But what I'm seeing around our state is people are becoming aware of this vast overreach. And since that time, when I began to see it, the other thing that helped, that really convinced me to step in the race, was last summer when Afghanistan happened. You see, growing up in the Air Force, my father was buried at Fort Logan Cemetery last year with honors. And as much as I miss him, when that happened, I was grateful he was not alive to see that debacle. Because the fact that we left hundreds of Americans behind and he had survived Vietnam to see the same kind of images was inexplicable. I want to give you an example of how out of touch Michael Bennett is. He's on the intelligence committee. So first of all, I want to take his position because we need to find out why the DOJ, the FBI have been sicked upon citizens where Joe Biden basically calls parents domestic terrorists and a Taliban partner. That is upside down. But after that happened in Afghanistan, Michael Bennett praised Joe Biden. And then, you know what his video was of next week? It was of him being rowed down the Colorado River. He didn't row himself because he was wearing a starched shirt and everybody else was doing the work. And he was talking about global warming. He does not understand what we know here. The number one issues facing our country today, first of all, are that the Democratic Party has become the very threat that the Constitution was written to prevent. You see, I love our country. 10 years of radio, what I do, I held everything up to, is it constitutional or not? Does it line up with the Federalist Papers? Look at what they're trying to do. They're trying to break down the division of powers, which is one of the best systems of government that we've inherited. Whether they are trying to federalize election laws, whether they're trying to end the filibuster, decriminalize crime, force unconstitutional mandates, or indoctrinate our children with our tax dollars. I am unafraid to go and stand up to what is happening in Washington, D.C. And I will do that for all of us. I want to share one last story with you why I am so sure that this is our year. Because really, you know, all we need to turn this around is one thing, and it's courage. I want to tell you about something that happened last summer, actually the summer of 2020. We were downtown, my husband and I, for the 6th annual Support the Police rally. And it usually is a very festive atmosphere. You know, obviously the defund the police movement had begun. But we were sitting there were parents, grandparents, children, there were food trucks, there were balloons, 150 of us. I'm talking to Steve Breen, who many of you know is the sheriff up in Will County. And he had just handed me a thin blue line flag, because I've always stood up for our fine men and women that keep us safe. When you hear the statistics that Heidi shared, there's a reason why crime is skyrocketing. So all of a sudden, right after we said the Pledge of Allegiance, all hell literally breaks loose. It is deafening. And we are descended upon by 450 Antifa. And I'm not kidding you, my first response was the same one I had when I went to the Soviet Union, was ready to face down the tanks. I grabbed that flag that Steve Reeves had just given me, and I went like this. I said, "You're not getting past us." My husband. You all in DC, but my husband, of course, who was, you know, 6'2" on the outside, 6'2" on the inside, he goes, "A little crazy, get behind me." But you know, I'm like, standing like this. We started backing up and backing up and backing up, and people are literally getting hit over the head and bleeding around us. But here's what I want to tell you. Even though my life has been in media, that was the first Facebook Live I ever did, because I thought to myself, people need to see the faces of the people around us. So I was doing this as they're pushing us. Somebody's grabbing the flag in my hand, I'm grabbing it back. It had almost 1 million views. But what I saw on their faces, we don't need to be afraid of. You see, what I saw was victimization, outrage. People have no idea why they were doing what they were doing. I want to end with this quote. Ronald Reagan said, "There is no weapon or weapons in the arsenals of the world so powerful as the will and moral courage of a free men and women." You know what I did see that day? Moral courage. That's what we have in this room. That's what I'm seeing all over the state, and people like you. And when we stand together with that, and I promise you that's what I'm going to take to DC, we will turn this thing around. They're really just bullies, and they're trying to see if we will back down again and continue to give them the power. We're not going to, not on my watch. The last thing I want to let you know is there's really one reason why I'm running. And I mentioned it at the very beginning. They're my kids who are 17 and 18 years old. Because what I cannot do is look them in the face and tell them that I did not do everything within my ability to stop what is going on so that they can inherit the blessings of liberty that we all grew up with. And I know together we can do that. So I very much appreciate your time. I asked you to go to deborahflora.com. Please be a delegate. I'm going through the assembly route because I very much value and appreciate the grassroots. So we've got materials back there, and I don't know if we have time for any questions. If we do.
I think at the end.
Okay, at the end, I'll be here for questions. Thank you all so much. I so appreciate being here, and I appreciate that we can stand together to protect one another's freedoms. Thank you so much.
Alrighty. Up next, we have Guillermo Diaz. He is running to represent Colorado House District 1. Doing a great job. You know, he's running in the belly of the beast. When I first became Denver Republican Party chair, he was the first candidate to approach me and say, "Listen, I want to run for House District 1. I know it's going to be hard, but, you know, I want to do it." And I'm pleased to see, you know, almost over a year later, you know, he is in it to win it. And, you know, hopefully he takes it and we take the fight to the Democrats.
Do it. Thank you, Garrett. Thank you, Valdamar. Thank you, Log Cabin Republicans, for the chance to speak out here. I'm a little intimidated, I'm not gonna lie. Having a call these two great patriots and great speakers, yeah, I'm a little nerve-wracked right now. No, but one thing I will say, I feel really confident about the future right now. Heidi's gonna be a great governor, and Deborah's gonna be one of the greatest senators we've ever had. So, my name is Guillermo Diaz, and I'm running for State House District 1, like Garrett mentioned. And I want to tell you guys a little bit about myself and why I'm running it. Why I feel like I had to run. So, personal information about me. I'm a father of 3 great kids, 2 school-age kids and a high school-age daughter. And a little bit about my background. My parents immigrated here from Mexico about 40 years ago, and they found their home. The thing about that is they were in search of the American dream, and they found it here. And I hear a lot of cynical people asking me, "Do you really believe in the American dream?" I not only believe in it, I experienced it firsthand. I saw my parents working hard, building a life here that they could never achieve in their home country. And Heidi touched on this. What's really sad and why I feel that I have to run is that we see it every day. The American dream is disappearing. It's constantly degraded by the left and putting people down for having the American dream. And so, and that's why people from all over the world come to America, including my parents, for that American dream. And what do we see now? We've had single party rule for the last 2 years. So what do we have to show for it? Crime is up, violent crime is up 35% since 2011. That's a huge number. Our streets have been completely taken over by the homelessness crisis that we have right now, and a government that has no plan to do anything about it. We actually had Initiative 303 that was fought tooth and nail by Denver City Council, and because they want to be held accountable for not doing anything about the homeless problem that we have going on. So another thing that we have to show for single party rule and Jared policies, Colorado working families can't afford basic necessities, food, fuel. Groceries are ridiculous. You have to take out a second mortgage to go out and to go out grocery shopping. It's really sad. But another thing that makes me really sad as a parent of school-age kids, we see it all the time. Parents are concerned about what's going on in their kids' schools. They're told to sit down, shut up, treated like terrorists. We know better than you. We know better for your kids than you do. That's going on all over this, all over the country, not just in our state. So, what else has happened? With Polis, a lot of small businesses like this one. My parents immigrated from Mexico. A lot of Mexican American families have small restaurants, and they were shut down by the pandemic. Not by the pandemic, but by Polis's response to it. His overreaction to it, not caring about people's livelihood, basically destroyed people's lives over something that shouldn't have been an issue. That's one thing. So, as your state representative, I'm running a simple campaign. I'm committed to keeping Colorado affordable, standing with law enforcement, and protecting your individual rights and your liberties. So again, my name is Guillermo Diaz, and I'm running for State House, and counting on your vote. Thank you very much.
We did some rearranging initially, so we had all the candidates grouped together, and then we would have the business afterwards. Now we're going to move on to our organization elections with our very own lovely Secretary Treasurer, Kenneth Wilkison. It was also Kenneth's 49th birthday yesterday, so let's give him a big happy birthday. Your birthday, Kenneth?
Yeah.
Yesterday was my birthday, yes. I was 49 yesterday. So now I'm staring down the barrel of 50 all year long. Oh well. All right, so my name is Kenneth Wilkison. I am the Secretary Treasurer of this organization. I'm actually the longest serving officer. I've been an officer in the organization for almost about 10 years now. Serving in either Secretary Treasurer combined or in separate roles over that time period. what we're gonna do first, this meeting is actually kind of unique. This is our first technical annual meeting, even though, I mean, it will be annual next year, of course. This is our first, because basically we reworked our bylaws in the last few months to change kind of how we do a few things. Typically what we did in the past was we had monthly business meetings, and once a year in February or March, we have elections. Now we've changed that slightly, where we do an annual meeting, and we also incorporate some other positions into our leadership board. So what I'm going to do now is we're going to go ahead and talk about elections. I don't have my Robert's Rules of Order here, so I don't know if I'm going to do this correctly, but so we have basically now we're going to go 2-year terms. Where's Val, right? 2-year terms. Okay, starting now we're going 2-year terms. Previously we were doing 1-year terms for every officer. Now we're going to go to 2-year terms, and that election will be, that election will occur on the annual meeting at that 2-year mark, versus just having it every year. So, having said that, I'm going to go ahead and talk about our candidates. Valdamar Archuleta, our current president, is running for, he was elected last year, sort of 1-year term, and now he's going to run for a 2-year term. He is unopposed. Vice President Garrett, again, he's been our vice president for a couple of years. He's running for a new 2-year term, unopposed. We have myself. We were going to try to split the roles of treasurer and secretary into 2 different categories again, but we don't have anybody interested in running for treasurer as such, so I'm going to continue to play both roles until sometime somebody may be interested in running for that position. So I'll be running for secretary treasurer for another 2-year term, and then we have a couple of people interested in some of our new positions. We have board member at large. We have Scott Barber, who's interested in running, and we also have we have 2 board members at large, right?
Yeah, we have 2 spots open and 2 candidates.
Yeah, we have 2 spots open and 2 candidates. So essentially, everybody is running unopposed. The other individual is Clayton Crouch. He's a long-time member. He's actually not here today, so he would be running for the second position. Clayton Crouch.
Oh.
Okay. I guess he had some car trouble or something to make it today. So having said all that, I guess what I'm supposed to do is put that slate into nomination, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, because I don't have much. So I'm going to put that into. I'm going to nominate the entire slate as it was. And then here's the other thing: voting members. And if you're a paid member, I guess we're going to how we have to do this is. Voting is open to all paid members who are current. I have the current list here. And basically, when you pay your dues, $25 a year, it takes you to year to date. So raise your hand if you're a paid member.
I think I'm paid up.
Okay, yeah, you are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right. So having said that, what we'll do then is we'll just do a show of hands of paid members, or I'll just place the entire slate into to be up for election. And do I have anybody that's opposed to that slate?
Can we ask tough questions?
Yeah, you can ask questions. You can question.
Where's Valdamar? I want to ask him some tough questions.
There he is. Okay, yeah. So yeah, we can do that. That's fair. Anybody want to ask us questions about what we're all about, what we're planning on doing, or whatever else? Okay. All right. So I'm going to place that slate into nomination. Nominate that slate. Everybody's done. Get a second.
You have to move it. Just say I move the motion.
I moved to motion. Okay, yeah. I was good.
You call the vote.
What's that? Okay. All right. Do I hear a second to place that slate in nomination? Second. Okay. All right. Got it. Okay. So, anybody opposed? No. Okay. All right, so what we'll do now then is we'll go ahead and take a vote on the slate, as again, the slate being Valdamar, President, Garrett Fletcher, Vice President, myself for the continued combined role of Secretary Treasurer, and then Board Member at Large Scott Barber, and then Board Member at Large Clayton Crouch, who's not present today. Do I hear say it? Do I hear a second? Place that. Go ahead and vote on that. Second. Okay. All right. Let's do the vote. Anybody?
All in favor of supporting the slate?
All in favor of supporting the slate of the main members?
All those opposed say nay.
Very nice. Okay, so that's passed. We're on for 2 years. Okay, that was a little choppy. Sorry about that. But like I said, I used to be good at Robert's Rules of Order when I was in college, but that was a long time. All right, so the next piece is basically I'm just going to talk a little bit about some of the highlights of our last year. Actually, 2021 was a huge year for us in terms of membership growth, growth of revenue, in our treasury. Basically, we have now, last year compared to this time last year, we've essentially, quadrupled or quintupled, I guess, our membership. Now we were about 10 paid members this time last year. Now we're up to, as of right now, we're 52 paid members. And just to talk about some of the highlights of last year, Val was elected president this time last year, and with Val's expertise, he was able to sort of get us out onto just new social media channels and build awareness for us. And I think that's really contributed to our membership growth. We also worked out some of the kinks on our website, and so that is a little bit more useful tool in spreading the information about what we're doing and being a way for us for people to join. For many years there, that just wasn't anything that I kind of struggled with, that because I didn't really have anybody to have the expertise to really kind of leverage that to our advantage. So Val brought that skill set that he did like the president. So we're grateful for that. Now, several of the highlights from last year. In March of last year, we partnered with the Denver GOP. We did the what do we call it?
Colorado Meat Day.
Yeah, it was meet.
Meet
Yeah.
the
Meet the GOP.
Meet the GOP in response to Governor Polis's, declaration of a no meat day or whatever in Colorado, which was kind of tone deaf, given the fact that Colorado is a heavily agricultural state, and one of our biggest industries is beef and cattle industry. And also one of his appointees was, who's now resigned, they just appointed I think appointed another people in her place, the veterinary regulatory board, which was sort of against, when you have somebody representing the beef and cattle industry in the government that believes that meat is murder. I don't know if that's a great.
Animal rights, it's got the same use as governor's spouse.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, that's right. So anyway, so we did respond, and that was a great event for us. We sold that out. It was a great opportunity to again partner with other public organizations, especially in Denver, and it was also during the COVID restrictions, so it was an outlet right when some of them were starting to lift a little bit. And so it was a great outlet for people to come. Everybody's come to an event, raise some money, poke us and eyeballs a little bit about that. It was a great event. Moving along, we did for the second year in a row, we weren't able to do a in-person Pride because our first gay governor of Colorado had no problem in making Pride difficult to occur in person the last 2 years, 2020 and 2021 in a row. But we did participate virtually, and we produced a great video. If anybody's seen it, it's on our website. Is that correct? It's on the website. We actually paid to put a video. They did a virtual Pride parade sort of thing of all the organizations that would have been in Pride, either in the parade or in the Pride event itself. And we did it. It was a great video. If you approach a video organization, basically reminding the community that it's okay to be who you are. You can come out of the closet from the closet, be Republican, because there's lots of us out there. And you don't have to conform to the social pressures of the gay left likes to inflict upon the gay community itself. Okay, so then the other really big event we did, it's probably one of our biggest events we've ever done in the history of our organization. In August, we did we had Lady MAGA USA, who is, what's his name?
Ryan.
Ryan, that's right. I'm pretty sure I'm friends with him too. Right? And he is the president of Longtime Republicans of Utah, and he has an alter ego as Lady MAGA USA. And we did that at the barn in Evergreen. It's a great event, sold out. We covered our costs on it, made a little bit of money actually as well.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Did Val ever return the favor and you drag for his long
So a great event, a spectacular event. I mean, we just done so much this year. And then, in the fall, we sort of picked back up, resuming our regular meetings. We had some choppy times there because we have had choppy times trying to find a consistent place to meet. That basically started at, during the COVID restrictions. We moved away. We used to, a couple of years ago, meet at the Heights Pub down in Denver. Then Denver being the worst place for COVID restrictions and problems, it just became too much of a problem to try to meet there. So we moved on, and then we found a place at Centennial for a short time, a wine bar out in Centennial. Fortunately, she's since closed down, and then most recently we moved our events here. What's the status on this place right now?
Yeah, Bill. So they're reopening in the evening again, so for a period of time, but in the evenings they will now have live music. So that's could be a problem.
Okay. So so basically now we're kind of on the hunt again for a new regular meeting place.
Well, he's the.
With the drum separation.
Oh, right, he's over there.
No, it's gonna, the woman at the reception said it's gonna be in the other side, but it's still gonna be very loud.
So,
We're not gonna do it every night.
But she said in the evening she'll have live music. That's just what she wanted us to know.
So, yeah, and then part of the reason why our annual meeting is today as well is because when we were planning this for this month, they were tentatively going to be closed in the evenings. So typically we would have done this on our regular meeting night, which is the third Tuesday of every month. But we moved it to this day so we could be, here when they were open, because they were just moving from breakfast to lunch versus just being open all day. But of course that now has changed again and they're back. So we can revisit remaining here, or there are some suggestions out there, some other places we can meet. So if anybody knows of, keep that open still. If anybody knows of places that have meeting rooms or things like that. One of the issues that we have is finding a place where, we either have to rent the room or we have to guarantee a certain amount of business. Fortunately, the places we found most recently, that wasn't the case, so that's why it worked well. So this is a good place. This has been a good place for us. We can stay here for the time being. If anybody has any suggestions or any other places they might think would work.
No.
Okay. We're open to that as well. Yeah, so we had a spectacular year. Again, I'll just kind of go over a treasury report. Prior to last year, we were kind of running, if we had $500 to $1,000 in the bank, that was good. Now we're up to $3,000 in the bank, and that's all just dues collections and monies made from various events all year collectively up to this point. And then our membership, as I said, essentially went up. So we've gone from about 10 to 52. The other highlights of the year is we are a log cabin Republic of Colorado, so we sort of represent a large geographic footprint here in the state. One of our goals as an officers group was to try to kind of get us out in other parts of the state. I think that has made dividends in terms of growing our membership. We basically, we've had meet and greets around the state, which is Colorado Springs, Western Slopes, Fort Collins, and we're continuing to sort of foster and develop those satellite groups around the state. And that's been, again, paying dividends in terms of increased membership and growth. The other thing, and also, in addition to our monthly meeting, we also maintain a monthly social. That's the first Saturday now of every month. And we've had the same problem with the social, have problems with logistics with COVID. But as of right now, we're meeting at Legends in Aurora, first Saturday of every month, basically 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. The emphasis behind the social is just to hang out, not talk politics, just be a social outlet. And not study business portion like we're experiencing right now. So, and again, a lot of the, Val's provided a lot of the groundwork for the meet and greets around the state. Different places that we did do our social down at what did we do in Denver? Well, we had it at X-Bar.
Little Devils.
Then we moved it to Little Devils, and then we had problems with COVID, all that kind of stuff. And then now we're at Legends in Aurora, which is not a gay bar, but it's a gay-friendly bar.
It's a Republican bar.
It's Republican.
Yeah.
So,
Like it.
No matter.
and then, so are we going to continue to try to do it there? Well,
I don't know.
okay, so we still have the same thing there. We have some logistics issues there, just with the size and things like that. Because again, we're starting to have a good problem, and that is trying to accommodate all the people that want to come there to do it. So,
Dirty Dog Roadhouse.
Yeah. So that's it that's sort of the highlights of 2021. And basically, I'm going to hand this over to our president again. And we're going to talk about what we're going to be doing in the future. Anybody have any questions about finances, membership, organization at this point that I can address? Okay. All right. So with that being said, we'll complete that part, and I'll give it over to Val.
Yeah, definitely thank you everyone for being here. It was great to see everyone. I do kind of want to talk about what we're going to be doing going forward. There's a lot of things to look at, especially when we are the gay Republicans. We hear a lot of the same crap over and over and over again. People want to know what we're going to do. This past year was a really amazing year, not just for us locally, but for LCR National. I mean, how much bigger of a guest can you get? We talked about the gala we had in November. Donald and Melania Trump came to an LCR event, obviously supporting the LGBT community. And the RNC themselves started the Pride Coalition, which I believe they changed the name to Gay Coalition, or I know they took Pride out because people were not happy about that term. They have political connotation behind it. I know if you go to the RNC website, they have a section about Republican gay outreach and how to connect with that. That isn't technically an LCR thing, but LCR leadership is working with those who are working with the coalition there. And they've given all of us presidents the connection to that leadership in the RNC to work with them. So this is a great step forward. But as always, whenever there's an action, there's going to be the opposite reaction. And there have been people who started the conversation, should gays be in the RNC? Gays should not be Republican, blah, 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 whatever. And you've also had the other thing coming up. When I was in Palm Springs, we were talking about Lady MAGA. I had a good talk with Ryan Woods, and we were kind of talking about how in that same fashion, you have on the left, the LGBT, I just have to look down and read this, LGBTQQIP2AA plus community. Justin Trudeau couldn't even do it. He can't remember it. No one can remember. He's like the leftist lefty there is. But they've gotten very extreme in what they're pushing. And in the same fashion, when you have that action, you're gonna have the opposite reaction. And you do have people out there who are, piping all like gay shouldn't be married, this, that, and the other. So what are we gonna do about it? Nothing. We already fought that battle. We had that fight. It's over. We won. If we can get married, we're part of the GOP. If people don't like it, that's their problem, not ours. We have better things to focus on. If you talk to any of us LGBT members who are in this conservative Republican community, those aren't the things we're worried about. We're worried about the same things everyone else is. We want to keep CRT out of the classroom. We don't want to indoctrinate children. We want to make sure our elections are safe and fair and secure. We want an economy that's prospering for everyone. We want inflation to go down. We want border security. We want the same things everyone else does. And so that's what we're going to spend our time and our energy and our resources fighting. These old battles that have already been fought and won, let the people bicker, whatever. Although these crazies, we are keeping an eye on them. We're going to watch them from a distance. If they get a little too crazy, we will step up and beat them back down. We've done it before. We'll do it again. So we're not like just letting it go. But it's not the prime concern of our organization. It's not the prime concern of conservatives. I think a lot of times it's a distraction. And we know, we've seen it with the Democrat Party and the left, how they use minorities. Guillermo was talking about it earlier with the Latino community. They use minorities that way. They use us the same way. They create this distraction and this fear mongering us. They're going to take your rights away. They hate you. Those days they're talking about are a very small group of people. And like I said, not that we're okay with it. We're going to watch them, but it's not our prime concern anymore. So what is our plan for 2022? We're going forward, as Ken talked about last year. We did a lot of stuff really focusing internally on the Republican Party here in Colorado to build our organization. Go let the counties know we're here, find the other gay Republicans and all that good stuff. Well, one thing I want to bring up, and Garrett mentioned this at the beginning, and Log Cabin Republicans National are going to be putting forth a peer-reviewed study really showing how we, Log Cabin Republicans nationwide, affected the 2020 election. And there is documented proof that Log Cabin Republicans flipped 7 congressional seats from blue to red because of us. And the reason for that, there's more information on this when they looked at social media for Log Cabin Republicans around the country, with Outspoken, our kind of media outlet. The biggest followers we have are not gay men, but straight women. Those are our biggest followers. Those are our biggest fans. And historically, and especially even recently, the GOP and Republicans have had a hard time recruiting women to the Republican Party. So you put these things together, guess who just became the biggest tool in the Republican Party's tool belt? We have. And so it's being recognized that this is happening. And one of the big things was Donald Trump, which is funny because he's called such a racist, bigot, homophobe. He brought a lot of, not only did he bring gays to the party, in 2022, he had a campaign going around called Trump Pride. Tiffany Trump was part of it. And they were, unfortunately, they didn't come to Colorado, but they were touring the country. And just having events and making it known to the people in the community that we exist. There are gay Republicans. We are welcome in the party. We're here in the party. And it changed people's minds, changed people's hearts. So what we want to do, like I said, last year, our focus when we did events was kind of on building our organization, building our community here within the Log Cabin Republicans. We want people to see us in the same way Trump Pride was able to have that kind of a result around the country. We want to have that result in Colorado. So we want people to see us. We want to be visible, whether it comes to things, like events with the media, with social media, newspapers, whatever. We want communities to see us. So we're going to look at things strategically and see what areas of Colorado would we have a big influence? Where should we go where maybe we can make a difference? And this is kind of just a hypothetical. But for example, say we knew the new CD8, our new congressional district. If we knew CD8, if we can get all the women or a lot of women to vote Republican, we can make that a Republican district. We'll go to the Weld County Fair. We'll go to Greeley Pride. Every little town in Colorado has their own pride, and it's kind of ridiculous, but we will, it's crazy if you see how many are out there, but maybe we'll write an op-ed for the Greeley newspaper. Maybe we'll go on a Greeley radio station, but we're gonna want people in CD8 to know that we exist. And again, that was just a hypothetical. It could be somewhere else. Yes.
Where is CD8, like, where's the center of it? CD8 is not free, by the way, that's CD3.
Oh, is that 3?
All of Weld County, well, I think most of Weld County and the east part of the state is Ken Buck's district.
Well, see, good thing we have him on board now, so he can help us make sure we go to the right places.
CD8 is having an event and Valdamar is off to Greeley.
So, but again, these will be things we're gonna look at. What parts of Colorado can we help bring in women to the Republican Party? And of course, not that we're not gonna care about everyone else. We're still gonna do the things that we've been doing, and we're still going to work on growing our organization. Next week, we're gonna be down in Colorado Springs at the airport restaurant. It's kind of a cool restaurant. It has like an actual plane and you can go in.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. And it's a Republican owned restaurant, so it'll be great. Yes.
Would you be interested in going to there's mature women liberty groups forming around the state? I know one up in Broomfield, one down at Highlands Ranch. Both have a substantial group of women there, and they would be probably.
Yes, we would love to go speak at these different events. Like I said, the thing is, we want people to know we exist because there's such a narrative out there that the Republican Party is just a bunch of old, white, straight Christian men, and everyone else is not welcome in the party. And sadly, people believe that, and so there are ways we can do this. I know the state party's even working on this. I think we're looking at, they had contacted me about possibly doing like Cinco de Mayo, the big festival they have downtown here, having a booth. The Colorado GOP wants to have a booth there. Just like people, so they know we're here and they know that there are more people in this party than just the stereotypes. But that's kind of what we want to do this year looking forward. So we are going to be in talks. The board will talk, and if anyone has information or ideas as to what we can do to help this, let us know. But we also want to have a fun summer because I mean, there's going to be a lot of campaigning. I know politics can be draining and tiring sometimes. So we are looking at some fun stuff just for our members. Well, not just everyone's welcome, but primarily for our members and all our allies to come together and just have a good time and build community. Because Alex Walton, who is the director of chapter development with National, he gave, and I cannot repeat what he said simply because I can't tell the story the way he did. He laid it out beautifully. It's just he's a nice, kind soul that when I deliver things do not come out the way he does. But basically talking about how as LGBT conservatives, a lot of times we get cast aside from the whole LGBT universe. And then sometimes we don't always feel the most accepted within some of the community universe. So he kind of described our little log cabin there, we have a little cabin there, is just like our home. It's a place where we can be happy, where we can be comfortable. Of course, I mean, it is, I go to Republican events all the time. I feel very comfortable. I also feel Colorado is different than some states. So I've talked to chapter leaders from other places where their states aren't as nice to them as our state is. I feel like we're welcome pretty much everywhere in Colorado within the Republican Party. So we're very lucky here in Colorado. But basically, that's it. That's what I feel like we need to do this year. We need to win elections so we can get people in to make these changes, to fight for the things that we really do care about. And we're gonna do our part to make that happen. Yes.
I've shown up and there's like just me and me in there, and we need to show up and.
Yeah, that is a good point. Anyone who's a registered Republican, please show up to caucus. If you go to caucus Colorado or caucus Colo GOP .org, is it Colo dot?
It's
Or caucus dot
I just made it like a
dot org?
I made a cheat sheet the other day for like the caucus and assembly process. I could send that out.
Yeah, maybe we can send that out to our.
So yeah, so essentially with this, it gives you a link that links you to the Colorado Republican site, and there it will guide you to where your exact location.
I believe, is it Colo dot or caucus dot?
It's like
Or
caucus
just
dot
caucus.
Colorado GOP dot.
No, it's Colo, you actually have.
Caucus dot Colo GOP .org.
Uh-huh.
And type your address in and it'll come up and it'll tell you where to go. Even if you find that, and it is complicated, I'm not gonna lie. I'm the PCP for my, which is funny because I called Garrett and said, can I be the PCP for my precinct? And he's like, you already are. I did not know. I had contacted someone like a year and a half ago and asked, they never confirmed that I actually was. So I just kind of moved on to other stuff. But if you're registered a Republican, go. They will help you walk. It may depend, because it's March 1st in Denver, I know. But it is important to be a part of this because it's gonna help you get your voice heard. As I said, even if you don't know what's going on, just go show up.
And bring
They'll
somebody
help.
with you.
Yeah. Don't go alone.
It's poorly, I have to say, I mean, I'm trying to get those to my caucus and I mean, I've had like, 3 emails, 2 phone calls and text messages, and only now after all that, have I got contacted back. The local people have not been that responsive, and that's what it said.
Yeah.
In their defense, though, I talked to one of the organizers of my county, and they said they did this weird thing where they didn't allow them to make reservations anywhere, except like 6 weeks out or something like that. So normally you would be planning your caucus in August and reserving space and putting a deposit down. Well, the state did this weird thing where they didn't allow them to do that. And then there was redistricting, so some of the precincts changed, and they only released the list of where all the boundaries were and the official caucus list on Tuesday. So, yeah. So
I know even with this registry, so I couldn't.
And really, at the end of the
register
day, the caucus is just electing people that are interested in participating in this.
But here's the thing, like,
Sorry.
we do have all this, there's a lot, there may be confusion. There may be people who are not working well the way they should. Don't let that stop you from being your voice. Don't let the difficulties of others, and everyone's gonna be a little different, each county, each district, whatever. But make sure you're there to represent yourself, represent your community. And there are a lot of resources out there. Maybe we should put together an email with the resources that we do have and send it out to our group. It is important to be involved and make sure your voice is heard. So don't let, the bad planning of other people stop you from, being your voice either. So, yes.
I agree that I think caucus is important. It happens once every 2 years, and it's the starting place inside the party.
It
Inside
is.
the Republican parties for all of us. And yes, the difficulties that these ladies were mentioning are true, but just go find out where it is, go. Bring a friend.
The other thing too is that that's where you become, or you are elected to be a delegate.
Yes.
Right.
So the last one that I went to, there were people that wanted to be delegates, but they hadn't brought their checkbook. So to run for delegate, you'd have to pay. And it's very little, it's like
I think it's
$100.
$25.
They put a cap on the fee.
And you can, I think now you can pay with credit card on the GOP website.
Paid for what?
your badge.
You
your
do not
delegate
have,
badge.
okay, you are not mandated according to state law to pay the badge fee.
There are also, if you can't pay it, there's scholarships, they call them, where you.
No, you
can
don't
do-
have to, you do not have to pay the badge fee if you refuse. So like there is some, so like back during, Dave Williams ran this back during the 2019 Central Committee, State Central Committee meeting. And essentially the Colorado State Legislature had passed it anyways, and it was already going to be signed into law, but you are no longer mandated to pay that badge fee. So if you win your position to be the delegate to your county assembly, you can say, no, I don't want to pay
Is
it.
that the same
You
for
can
the
refuse
state
it.
as well?
You
Yeah,
don't have to pay a badge fee.
because remember, the caucus and assembly is a state law, both major parties follow.
When did that
So-
change?
That changed, I think, in 2019. The SEC meetings. We changed it with our state party bylaws. Sorry, not to,
Oh, no, you're good. I'm glad you brought that up. So I didn't know that.
there's 17 hours.
I knew, like I said, I knew that they do have scholarship thing, but you can't pay, you can still get in. Anyway, go be a part of that. We'll try and get something out to you. It's happening really soon, so we don't have a lot of time.
So all your caucuses will happen between March 1st and March 5th, depending on your county. And then after that, they will be between, you have to have them in 22 days, and then the state assembly will be on April 9th, down Colorado Springs.
And our next week, when we are in Colorado Springs, our guest speaker, that's what they're talking to us about is caucus. So I'll try and get a video of that and put it up on our YouTube channel as soon as possible, like that night probably, because by then it's coming up like that next week. But anyway, just go be a part of it. You all cared enough to be here today, so I'm sure you care enough to be a part of that. Let's let our voices be heard. So anyway, that's really all I got. Oh, go ahead.
Just gonna mention that recently, Christy Brown put a YouTube video out about the caucus process, about an hour long. So if anybody wants to learn more about it, because it's really confusing, that is available on YouTube.
Okay.
And then, so everybody goes and becomes delegates.
Yeah, I've watched probably several hours of videos from different sources. I think I finally got it after the last one. I was like, all right, I think I kind of get this. And I saw the script that we're supposed to follow that. And it does, like, if you just go, if you don't know what's happening, there will be people there who do, and you kind of follow the list and go through what you need to do. It won't be that bad, so be a part of it. Well, thank you all for coming. Thank you on that.